The first thing she noticed was the quiet. Not the gentle hush of a snowy morning, nor the kind of silence that comes after a storm, but something heavier, thicker. As if the air itself had turned to wool. Anna stood at the edge of the lane, a basket of kindling in her arms, and realized she couldn't hear the crows. There were always crows. She looked up. The sky was pale and dry. The rooftops of the village sat still beneath it, thatched and smoke-stained stone, but no wings cut across the sky, no cries echoed from the trees. Even the wind seemed unsure, as though it had forgotten how to move through the branches. She shifted her grip on the basket and walked on. It was the winter of 1843, and the frost had come early. The well had iced over twice that week, and the Reverend's wife had started to mutter nonsense in her sleep, though Anna tried not to think much of that. People said odd things when they were cold. Anna lived alone in a small stone cottage at the far end of the village. She kept to herself, mostly lit candles at dusk, boiled her water twice, always swept the hearth before bed. Her days were a pattern of warmth and small labor. But lately, something in the pattern had changed. Yesterday, she saw a shutter nailed close on a house that had no storm damage. The day before that, the baker had boarded up his door from the inside. When she knocked, just to check, no one answered, though she was sure she saw someone shift behind the curtain. Today, the windows along the main lane all wore cloth from the inside. Grey, thick, still. As though the village had blinked, and decided not to open its eyes again. She passed the blacksmith's. The forge had gone cold. Ashes, undisturbed. She paused. There, lying on the anvil, was a loaf of bread. Not fresh, not old, just sitting there. No note. No footprints in the thin frost leading to or from the shop. It shouldn't have been there. She did not touch it. Anna quickened her pace, the quiet pressing more firmly against her now, like fingers at the base of her skull. When she turned down the path toward her own home, she thought, just for a breath, that she heard something behind her. But when she turned, the lane was empty. Still, she closed her door with more care than usual. She lit the fire. Put on tea. Sat with her hands around the mug and listened. No birds. No distant voices. Even the trees had gone still. The walls around her seemed to tighten with the hours. She didn't remember them ever being so close. That night, she barred the door. It wasn't until the fourth day that she realized no smoke rose from any chimney but her own. She watched from the back window. The village square, the chapel roof, the cobbled paths, all pale under a sky that no longer shifted. Nothing moved. That same day, she found something new. A length of rope, stretched taut between her gate and the tree at the end of her garden. No note, no nails, no sign of who had placed it. But tied to the middle of the rope, gently swaying, was a bell. Small, iron, old. It made no sound. Anna stood there, breath shallow, and watched it swing. It took her several minutes to realize there was no wind. That night, she heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Not outside, within the cottage. She stayed in bed, still beneath the covers, eyes fixed on the shadows across the ceiling. Nothing came. But something had moved. By the end of the week, she had stopped leaving entirely. Not out of fear, at least not in the usual sense, but because she no longer trusted the outside to be real. Each time she stepped beyond her door, the village looked a little less familiar. The stones misplaced. The paths slightly off. Once, she saw her own window reflected in a puddle, but from the wrong angle. She began to write things down. What she ate. When she slept. The number of candles she had left. Anything to tether herself. One morning, she awoke to find every item on her list underlined in ash. She did not own a pencil. Time loosened. She stopped counting the days. The sky remained unchanged, pale and dry, as if painted on. Her tea leaves no longer stayed properly. Her reflection in the water barrel began to smile before she did. Then came the knocking. Not on her door, but on the inside of her walls. 3 knocks. Always from a different place. Sometimes from under the floor. Sometimes above the rafters. She began to speak to it. She never asked what it was. Only if it could still see the others. If the houses were full. If the bread was warm. If the shutters had always been closed. She never heard answers, but the knocking grew softer. More frequent. She took that to mean yes. Eventually, she stopped lighting candles. There was no need. The dark no longer felt separate. It simply was. And then, one morning, the quiet changed. She noticed it immediately. Not louder, but thinner. As though something had moved, far away. The kind of shift you feel more than hear, like the deep creak of old wood. She stood, walked to the door, and opened it. No frost. No wind. The sky the same pale color, but different somehow. The houses stood still. The cloth still hung behind the windows. But the rope was gone. So was the bell. And stretched across her garden path, neatly printed in small, sharp letters, was a row of footprints. Only one set. Going in. Never coming out.